And here we go. It is another Pittsburgh Hockey Now live chat. That is me, very small. Now I'm on the screen. Hi, I'm Dan Kingerski. This will appear, I think, because of the holidays. I think it might just be a one-time deal on YouTube and YouTube alone. So, welcome to those of you joining me. I guess you might be stuck at work, one of those people who have to work all the way through the 24th, or you had a half day getting home, whatever it is. Thanks. I don't expect a whole lot today. It is one of those crazy sort of days. So, what we're going to do, we are going to spend a little bit of time talking about last night. Last night, of course, being the loss to the Toronto Maple Leafs, which was ungodly bad. Let me see if I can. Last week, I had like all four little pictures on the side of the screen. It was great. I have no idea how I did that. Absolutely none. But we're going to talk Sidney Crosby. And I was writing this and I heard a national person say it. And I was like, no, because I was publishing it today. Nevertheless, I steered into the skid of where Sidney Crosby ranks in terms of the all-time greats. There is, I fully expect once people read this early next week or after the Christmas break here, I'm going to get some flack. But truth is truth. So we're going to get into that, you and me. Also, the report card from last night. Absolutely brutal. I don't know that I have seen. I mean, we've seen some real stinkers this year. Wait, how do I get there? We've seen some real stinkers this year, but I don't know that I have seen a game so winnable against such a beatable opponent in which most of the Penguins players played well and they still lost. I will reserve some of my irritation because no matter how many times I seem to explain it, and maybe we'll start here. No matter how many times I explain it, I get the same sort of just obstinate comments. You have to bench them, scratch them, hold them accountable. It's like, just these aren't 12-year-olds. And I feel like people think this is like youth hockey. They're coaching their own youth team. You have to bench them really to show them how it's done. Let them know that's not acceptable. And it's like, go ahead, start doing that. Go ahead, scratch Chris Letang for a game and publicly say, you know what? Too many mistakes. We're not going to stand for it. We are not going to let Chris Letang just make these mistakes. Go ahead, scratch Erik Karlsson and say, you know what? That play on Tuesday night when he just sort of laid there against the breakaway, unacceptable. That's not Penguins hockey. And we're going to scratch him tonight. We have to hold the line on what this team means. Go ahead. Go ahead and do that and see what happens. See how long before the team just absolutely terrorizes the coach. Because what you're not doing anything productive. These are 35-year-old, 38-year-old guys. They kind of know what they're doing. And they know when they didn't do what they're supposed to do. And just because you don't see it publicly doesn't in any way, shape, or form mean that they're not getting an earful internally. That's how they're held accountable within the structure of the room. I think that's what people sort of miss. They think because the coach doesn't walk over to the concrete wall, be it in Toronto, Montreal, look at Dan Kingerski, Jason Mackey, Josh Yohe, and just shred his team, that he's not getting his say internally. That I think is such a hugely important distinction too. So many things, and I want to just not that the comment doesn't occasionally have merit. There are some players for whom a healthy scratch is necessary. And the reason would be because they're not upholding a certain standard of play. But when you start doing that to your top players, now you risk the next game. Okay, maybe you're okay with that. You risk the next game and you risk the rest of the players being really PO'd because now you've shorthanded them in their pursuit of the next game. Okay, fine. You say they're professionals. I love that line. It's like the penicillin for any bad argument. They're professionals. Listen, they played 5 games in 7 days. They're professionals. The guy's going through a hellacious divorce. His wife hit his car, took the kids. He hasn't scored in 3 games. He's a professional. By the way, these are all like situations that I've witnessed in the last 20 years at some point. And those are, wow, he's a professional. Anyway. I like you all, but I think that's one where you have to know the context, and it kind of feels like sometimes that I talk till I'm blue as the sweater in the face, and it's like nobody hears, or the people who need to hear it don't hear it. So there's that, and I sort of just let it go last night. I just I want to educate everybody. And sometimes Dan has to realize that ain't happening anytime soon. But you can always come here for the insights, whether you take it or not, entirely up to you. Speaking of last night, where is he? Yeah, I'm going to cut this video after like the first minute 'cause I realized I just uploaded the wrong video. This is Erik Karlsson and Stuart Skinner in the locker room afterward, and Karlsson was asked, "Hey, what's your mindset there on that breakaway goal?" When Steven Lorentz, Karlsson was sort of toying with him, and Lorentz just said, "Fine," took the puck, and went on a breakaway goal. Here's Karlsson last night, sort of in line with everything we're talking about.
I don't think you were outplayed. Just a handful of mistakes.
Yeah, I think we didn't play a bad game by any means. I think we just got punished when we made the big mistakes, and that's what a good team does do sometimes, and they did that to us today. Still think that we can find a way to create a little bit more in front of their net and create a few more bounces for ourselves. But overall, tough loss, and one that probably looks a little bit more loop-side on the score sheet than it actually was.
You had the turnover in the second period that led to the goal. What was your mindset on that goal?
He did a good job to stay with me. I kind of ran out of options and lost an edge and fell. And again, they capitalized on it. It stings. And, it's obviously stuff like that you can eliminate. But then at the same time, things are going to happen. You're going to move on. And like I said, I don't think we caught any breaks today. And they caught all of them. And they made us pay for it.
All right. So fair answer. Yes, no. What do you think? Did that explanation satisfy you? I ran out of room, ran out of options, lost an edge. They caught the breaks. We didn't. I'm curious. I think if Sidney Crosby said that, you'd be like, yeah, I get it. If Evgeny Malkin, some of you would say, yeah, I get it. Erik Karlsson, I don't think you're giving him the benefit of the doubt. I actually made myself coffee, but I forgot too close to the show, so it took a few minutes. By the way, I don't know. You probably get. I don't know how many of you get bombarded by those ads on Facebook, and I'm not going to tell you the brand name or anything because they're not paying me. So to heck with them. But I ordered one of those mushroom coffees. I mean, it doesn't taste as good as some of the stuff that I like to buy for the Keurig. The coconut or the chocolate, whatever. But it actually kind of it has a little bit of a smooth taste, but also doesn't have like that caffeine spike where I'm, like a cat with its back arched up. Let's get to some of the questions here. Drizzy has to lead us off here. When I do the 1 o'clock show, Driz is the guy. He bats leadoff. He is my Chuck in Uniontown. For those of you who don't listen to the Fan and the Pirates games on the radio, Chuck in Uniontown was always the first caller for the Pirates post-game shows. Anyway, thanks for the best content in Pittsburgh. Can general manager Kyle Dubas now move forward with the rebuild without worrying about the standings and playoff implications? Or was this question answered when Jarry was traded? You know what, Driz? I think Dubas is still largely walking a little bit, he's walking on both sides of the fence here. Because, yes, he had a chance to trade Jarry, and he will not sacrifice the present for the future. And he felt like if he hung on to Jarry, then he wouldn't get a better shot than this. That was my reading of the situation. Like, this was as good as he was going to do in the next 2+ years. And so we had to do it now and hope that Stuart Skinner or Sergei Murashov and Artie Shelofs would all sort of form a goalie triumvirate good enough to allow the team to do whatever it's going to do. Is he going to worry about playoff standings and implications? I would say, and this is purely my conjecture and my reading tea leaves, okay, is that the standings and playoff potential are still a factor, but they're not a deciding factor. It gets put into the blender to see what comes out. And if it were a close decision that they thought would hurt their playoff chances this year, maybe they don't make it. But if they feel like it makes them better in the future, they do. So I think we're still there. The Penguins are literally, what are they? 2 points out of the wild card. That's just how mediocre the rest of the Eastern Conference is. Think about this. The Toronto Maple Leafs are still in last place in the Atlantic Division. Up until last week, the Penguins had a higher winning percentage than every team in the Atlantic. Now, there are clearly some issues with the Penguins. And those issues aren't structural. They are personnel. Whether or not Dan Muse and Kyle Dubas will be able to fix them, whether or not Kyle Dubas wants to fix them, right? Because you start fixing personnel issues, you have to do it with the long run. Dubas can't just, go find a patchwork defenseman. That doesn't help the long run. Actually, it probably hurts the long run, so Dubas isn't going to do that. So I can clearly not choose the wine in front of me. However, if Dubas does see some future alternatives, some younger players, in fact, I've got one I'm going to write about tomorrow, in fact. I'm going to do some Christmas Day content. If he sees a player that could help them now and the long run, well, I can clearly not choose the wine in front of you. I know you're thinking it's inconceivable, but that's where the Penguins are. My, you have a dizzying intellect. Wait till I get started. I think that's what I'm going to do the rest of the day. I'm going to probably take a walk around downtown, get back, and I'm going to watch some Marx Brothers movies and Princess Bride and just call it a day. I think that's where we're headed. Let's see here. Big Joe says, Merry Christmas, Dan. Well, you as well, Joe. Hope you're enjoying my day. Well, I'm doing this. there are worse things to do. You know what I mean? I'm doing this because I like it. Big Joe says, I'm afraid the Penguins' true colors are showing for this season. They are who we thought they were. I don't know. Everyone is going to say that. Big Joe, you've got plenty of company, and I'm probably wrong when I say this. Okay? I'm fully admitting that I very well might be wrong. I feel like the Penguins' issues are one, many of them are corrected when Evgeny Malkin gets back. You know, the middle of the lineup just having trouble putting the puck in the net. But two are so self-inflicted. Last night was it was unacceptable on so many levels. So what do you do? By the way, Will Horkoff just made Team USA. I kind of thought that was almost a fait accompli, right? It's almost not even news because, yeah. Anyway, I'm looking forward to seeing him against Team Canada and really seeing what he does against top competition. That's what I'm waiting to see waiting to see from Big Will. So, I suppose if the Penguins don't make any changes, these mistakes, because they are being made by top players who are consistently mistake prone, it is their true colors. But I can't help but wonder if they can fix a little bit of this internally. And if they can, boy, this team actually has a little something. It has a little juice. I'm telling you, if they can stop shooting themselves in the foot and the leg and the arm and the shoulder, they graze their, if they can stop self-destructing, they actually are a decent team, and that's the scary part. Let me rephrase that. If they can stop self-destructing with Evgeny Malkin in the lineup, they are a decent team. All right, Michael Parker says someone needs to be fired and someone needs to be traded now. Michael. I don't think you're paying attention to the big picture here, Michael. Also, the last time a coach was fired in his first season with the team, this early in the season, was Barry Melrose with the Tampa Bay Lightning back in 2003. That was a debacle of an ownership situation, and it just it was a holy terror for everybody involved. But you have to tell me why Dan Muse is at fault. Did Dan Muse, you guys think a coach sitting there with like a PlayStation controller, Xbox, like, okay, Carlson, do this. Now these players a coach says, here's what we need to do, here's how we do it, go do it. And by and large, look at the improvement of so many players. You don't want to fire Dan Muse. You don't want to fire Todd Nelson. Good gosh almighty, the power play is still top 5 in the league. You don't want to fire Mike Stothers. Until Blake Lizotte went out of the lineup, the penalty kill was 3rd. Yes, they do have to figure out how to kill penalties without Blake Lizotte in the lineup, but hasn't even been 10 games. They've hit a real rough patch. Okay, what is the vision for the Pittsburgh Penguins? And what will be the long-term impact with the new ownership? Who are they? That is a very good question. And I've said publicly now, I'll say it publicly again, the Hoffmans need to get out in front. Sure, they have every right and ability to hide. What am I going to do? Barge into the real estate offices and demand to speak to Jeff Hoffman because we want answers? As you see me on the evening news being heaved from their front door by my belt loops, I do think they should start answering questions publicly. Perhaps they're waiting to be approved by the Board of Governors. Let's just say the fear and worry that they don't have enough money is in fact valid. I don't know that it is. I think it's a fair worry when people worth $2 billion basically pay $1.7 billion for a hockey team. You're like, ooh. I mean, I've already heard some whispers about the financing and so on and so forth. Let's just say the Board of Governors says, no. Sorry, folks. We appreciate your interest, but you don't buy a team on a credit card. So they reject it. And at that point, the Hoffmans would have had no reason to answer questions. But if they are approved, now we ask those very real questions. Long-term vision for the Penguins. Unfortunately, this is my belief, and you and I probably are, I have no extra knowledge on this subject. My belief in terms of the sports world are that the Pittsburgh Penguins are, in fact, a marquee franchise of a fast-growing league, which makes them very attractive. However, because they are in a smaller market, they're also affordable. So it's kind of like, I don't know, the Penguins are a Mustang. If I'm going to make a car analogy, like every guy is wont to do for everything in life, I'm going to say the Penguins are a Mustang GT. They're an awesome car that everybody wants, that a lot of people can afford. You don't necessarily have to have a vision to buy the Penguins. The vision is to buy the Penguins. So that's my take on that. I don't know that the Hoffmans are going to come in here and do anything radically different. They're not coming in here to save the city or to build up the fourth and fifth, the Forbes and fifth corridor. They're not coming in here to do that. They're coming in here to own the Pittsburgh Penguins because it's a huge step forward. It's a step up in prestige, in public visibility for their companies, for themselves. I don't know what else a team owner could do. We set the bar so high. I shouldn't say we set it. It was set so high when Mario Lemieux forwent his owed payments in bankruptcy court and said, just give me the team. Think about how little Mario gave up. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, like 20 million, 21 or 23 million to be exact. Transferring that to ownership, 10, I mean, we're almost at 100 times what Mario paid 28 years ago, 27. Think about that for a second. We're almost 100 times what Mario paid to get in the door. All right, Michael goes for the hat trick, rookie coach, rookie mistake. Learn to coach them up. Oh, do I hate that phrase. Michael, if you ever want to just get me to roll my eyes, use that phrase, coach them up. These aren't kids, man. Let's go to Drizzy comes back here. Team D has been suspect at best the last 10 games. Probably the last 20 games, but you're correct. Easy to say bench someone, or the D-man, or the goalie is terrible, but the Stars slowing overall. Team D is the biggest reason the recent collapse. Yeah, Dan Muse made a real slight reference to it last night, Tuesday night in Toronto, when he talked about players not staying in position to defend. And what he meant by that, like on the Kevin Hayes turnover, and I felt bad for Kevin Hayes, actually, because my notes were Kevin Hayes. The good things that he was doing. He made a couple of passes in the first period before that turnover that were silly good. I mean, like backdoor through the legs, sprung Connor Dewar for a good rip in the slot. You're like, wow. He danced around the offensive zone, did Kevin Hayes. His turnover obviously was bad. It leads to a goal. You can't be going backward toward the blue line when somebody is on you. You got to just find a way to throw that puck into open ice once you've committed to that mistake. You can't just let it be picked and go. Having said all of that, now kind of think about this. Where were the defensemen? Nobody sort of cycled back to safety net the play. Erik Karlsson and Parker Wotherspoon at both ends of the blue line. They were, at the far walls, were flat-footed watching this play unfold. Oh, no. And then they go racing to catch William Nylander. You're not going to catch William. You're not going to catch him. Now, I suspect, every team has a little different wrinkle or philosophy. But as Kevin Hayes is coming from the right wall toward the center, Karlsson is supposed to probably stay put for, a little pass. And Wotherspoon is supposed to then circle out just to make sure everybody's taken care of, right? And neither defenseman did that. Now, Dan Muse's system might very well call for, as Hayes comes through, for Karlsson to sort of clear out and take center ice, and Wotherspoon to take the mid wall to give Kevin Hayes an option. But instead, both defensemen were eating the popcorn. What are you going to do? Yes, to Drizzy's point, team defense. Yeah, there were a whole lot of flat-footed spectators in the offensive zone last night as Toronto raced. Jeff Anderson. Is that the Jeff Anderson? That'd be pretty cool. We need Gino. Yeah, the Penguins really do. Although, having said that, last few games, Tommy Novak, last couple of games, Tommy Novak with Mantha and Brazeau, pretty good. Who comes out when Gino and Lizzo are back? Okay, let's tackle that one first. Although I'm going to take this question, then I'm going to get to Sidney Crosby because I haven't talked yet about Sidney Crosby. So who comes out? I used to think it was, in fact, Tommy Novak, but he's been playing really well the last 10 games. I suspect you're going to see a little bit of a forward rotation. Ville Koivunen's going to be in trouble. He just is still inconsistent. So Koivunen is the first out when Malkin comes back, and then you put Novak on the third line with McGroarty and Kindle. Okay, there's that. Who comes out when Blake Lizotte comes back? I would suspect that becomes a little bit of a rotation. Kevin Hayes is probably the first guy out, but he's going to slot in at times for Nola Chari. And you just kind of keep going. You might see Ben Kindle get some nights off again. I will tell you what, inside, Ben is not a big guy. He's not looking thin and gaunt just yet, but I'm sure, I've heard of rookies losing 10 and 15 pounds through the season. I'm sure the Penguins are doing everything they can to keep weight on him. But a few scratches to let him hit the weight room and such, and then you put Kevin Hayes in. So I think you'll see a little bit of, some rotations there. Thoughts on St. Ivany and Kulak in the last handful of games? Kulak was not bad against Montreal. Otherwise, Kulak got beaten up against Toronto, and he certainly wasn't good in the first few games either. he really is swimming in this Penguins system, or he's just swimming with the Penguins. It is not working whatsoever right now for Kulak. He's just, yeah, he's zigging when he should zag, and getting undressed by Max Domi. That was a bit of a surprise, to say the least. Thoughts on Jack St. Ivany? St. Ivany is continuing to progress and get better and better with each game. His first few games, I didn't say it. I might have hinted it. You might have heard it. We both might have thought it, but I didn't say it, that St. Ivany was in real trouble and not, looking like an NHL defenseman. The last couple of games, he very much has. He got angry against Montreal and started tossing some bodies. That was good. I thought he did the same thing against Toronto as well. He's starting to play strong. He's getting his confidence. When Jack St. Ivany first came up in that first 20-game stretch, was it 20? When he made his NHL debut against Dallas at the end of the 23-24 season. They blessedly held him out against the Colorado Avalanche. They didn't dunk him into that, such deep water. They played against Dallas, and he really had a good run. When he's playing well, his gaps are really tight, and he's confident. And if a forward comes toward the blue line, he's disrupting with the stick. He's getting stops in the defensive zone. He's using the walls and his shoulders, and he's clearing the net front. That's really his best game. And I saw a good bit of that Tuesday. Things are improving. And I would say that he reached competent status Sunday and Tuesday. Now he's got to build on that or strengthen it, right? He's got to keep doing it, stack good games, so that when you have a bad game or two, it doesn't look terrible. You gotta minimize those. Okay, let's see here. JF1. Penguins were expected to finish in the bottom 5. One good month doesn't magically make them good. Well, a bunch of analysts not knowing what they're talking about doesn't make them bad either. They were good. They were inconsistent in November, and they've been bad in December. They've been bad without Evgeny Malkin and Blake Lizotte as well. So let's keep it all into context. We predicted, and other analysts predicted, the national folks all predicted the Penguins would be bottom 5 because they were going to trade Rickard Rakell, maybe Erik Karlsson, maybe Brian Rust, and Tristan Jarry was terrible, and all of those things like that none of them were true. There's Rickard Rakell playing really well the last couple of games, and there's Brian Rust just Brian Rusting in the corners, in the net fronts, just getting every puck and creating space and making that line go. And Erik Karlsson's still here, and Tristan Jarry was really good. So I don't know. I'm not prepared to say they are a bad team. I'm prepared to say they're playing holy crap badly. Yeah, they're playing badly. But it's self-inflicted, which is always a little bit, funky to analyze because you can fix that. Late to the party, new haircut, Dan. No, actually, I just got a haircut. That was last week. Well, yeah, in Montreal. I stopped. I can't. I almost said the big national chain I usually just roll through and like, okay. Zun, zun. Having a real barber was so nice. He actually knew what to do and how to fix what the other folks had messed up. Will Rockstar says, Merry Christmas, Dan. Well, Merry Christmas, Will. Hope you'll be on. Oh yeah. I'm giving you the full hour here. I will tell you, I did make an impulse purchase today. I'm waiting for an email because I bought myself a pair of Jordan 3s downtown, the army green, olive green Jordan 3s. I'm like, okay, let's go. I want to go pick them up. Anywho, let's get to, let's talk about this guy. Sidney Patrick Crosby, 1,725 points and counting. Where does Crosby fit amongst the all-time greats? You've heard a lot of people say, well, the top four always is Mario Lemieux, Wayne Gretzky, or actually Gretzky, Lemieux, Bobby Orr, Gordie Howe. That's your four. And then everybody else sort of takes a number. I was always a little bit disappointed that Jaromir Jagr wasn't given number 5 because, who else has 2,000 points or almost 2,000 points? And who else did the things that Jagr could do? But then I also thought the last decade of his NHL career was generally injury plagued. Like his time with the Rangers and Capitals, he wasn't the best player in the game. So I suppose I had to recognize that. But in the last several years, Crosby has generally been accepted as number 5 overall. Fair enough, right? Wrong. Guess what? Sidney Crosby is one of the 4 best players of all time. It is time to shuffle Crosby ahead of Gordie Howe. Probably by next December or January, Crosby will pass Gordie Howe's Detroit Red Wings mark. Howe had 1,809 points with the Red Wings, which stands alone in NHL history as the most points with any one team. Howe later had 41 points with the Hartford Whalers when he played with his sons, including Mark Howe, now in the Hall of Fame as well. And it seems sacrilegious. I know the original 6 people's their heads are going to explode, but let me tell you something. Sidney Crosby passes Gordie Howe. I'm not going to make the original 6 argument like, oh, there were only 6 teams in the league. That might work for the Stanley Cup quantity argument, but it doesn't work in terms of the quality of play argument because, in fact, with only 6 teams, you only had, the best 120 players in the world playing each other a whole lot. And Gordie Howe really set the standard for about 15, 20 years in the NHL. Mr. Hockey, Mr. Elbows. Although he had, I think, 1 Gordie Howe hat trick. It was just his reputation preceded him, and his reputation was really kind of bigger than the game itself. Sidney Crosby isn't bigger than the game itself, but boy, he's kind of getting equal footing, isn't he? The reason I say Crosby now surpasses Gordie Howe is this. How many players around the world are playing because of Sidney Crosby? Guys in the NHL are like, that's Sidney Crosby. That's Sidney Crosby. I get to play with Sidney Crosby. Not only has he influenced teammates, he's influenced opponents, he has shaped the game. Coming out of that year-long lockout, 04-05, in which we gave up a year to get the salary cap, I don't know that a lot of you remember quite what we were going through at that point. The game was awful. The game was a bunch of knuckle draggers water skiing behind the talented players, clutch and grab and driving the game into the mud. And then here came 18-year-old Sidney Crosby and 19-year-old Alex Ovechkin. What a tandem those two were. But Crosby's game has shaped the game that is today. Everybody started with trying to emulate Crosby. Now they're trying to emulate how McDavid skates and little things that he can do at speed that nobody else has ever done. But nobody has shaped the game and the people in it quite like Crosby. Understand that. Just how influential he has been to the very sport itself. And now that his point totals are getting there, now that he has been this great this long. I mean, just think if he hadn't been knocked out of the Winter Classic back in 11. Is it 11 or 12? I don't know. He would be knocking on the door of 2,000 points next year. He lost about 150 points. He'd have over 1,900 points already, or close to 1,900 points, rather. Think about those things. And yeah, so having said all of that, I think Crosby now takes his place. I hate the Rushmore cliche, but he takes his place on Mount Rushmore with Mario, Wayne, and Bobby Orr. Okay, so that's the little bit of Crosby stuff I wanted to get to today. That was also in the PHN blog, the Penguins blog that I published this morning. Elizabeth says, we joked forever about our Maple Leafs, an Oilers fan here, and they are up and down and down, or wait, they are up, down. I see Penguins going up, and after the holidays, this starts before the new year. Get it good. All right, Elizabeth. I do think a little bit of rest for this team. Good gosh. The schedule has been just terrible. What Jacob asked, what do I think went wrong this month? Just tuned in case you already talked about it. No, I haven't really. I suppose I've nibbled at different sort of aspects of what's gone wrong in December. The mistakes have been ghastly, catastrophic. The chances they have been giving up have been almost sure goals. The breakaways, the odd man rushes. From that standpoint, the defensemen haven't been doing their part to cycle over the top. The F3s have been getting greedy, trying to get offense in the lack of Evgeny Malkin. Too many of the forwards are trying too hard. And it really became just a cavalcade of mistakes. And then when those mistakes multiplied, then they started feeling down. They've also, how many times in December have played 3 games in 4 days? I mean, you get back from Sweden, you played 2 games in 12 days, which was ridiculous. So now your legs are terrible for those next few games. You don't have your legs because you weren't playing hockey. So you lose a few games there. And then the grueling December schedule starts. I mean, what did they play? Was it 17 or 18 games in 31 days? That's for a team with as many older legs as the Penguins, that's almost nonsense to have a schedule like that. And then you take out Evgeny Malkin. Ouch. You take out Blake Lizotte. Last year, the Penguins were, into November, December even, it might have been. They were undefeated with Blake Lizotte in the lineup. Like 8, 9, 10, and 0. He just means something. And I was actually talking with a former player who really treats them objectively. And said player was like, look at the Penguins' fourth line with Blake Lizotte. Connor Dewar, Nola Chari at this point, okay. Even Blake Lizotte. But you put those 3 together, now they are much greater than the sum of their parts, and the Penguins are sort of missing that. As many chances as Kevin Hayes has created in the last few games as the fourth line pivot, with all respect to Hayes, he's not going to duplicate what Blake Lizotte can do on the penalty kill and defensively. That's just not Kevin Hayes' game. So all of those things went wrong. They also got some bad goaltending. You weren't going to get 920 save percentage for the entire season, There's that. There's also that teams adjusted. They adjusted to the Penguins' power play. teams have, now have good tape on their penalty kill and are able to attack it in different ways. And so the rabbit got caught. Now through Christmas here, what's the rabbit gonna do? Let's see here. Will says, I'd like to have Hollander back as well. I don't know where Hollander fits with this team. I genuinely don't. Yeah, I don't know where you shoehorn him in. Also, I don't think he'll be back till February, maybe March. So that's probably not a question that the Penguins have to worry about. Jacob says the Penguins defensemen are really disappointing so far this season. Oh, they were really good. Then they weren't. Let's see here. Let's go to Colt. I haven't read the question in advance. Hopefully, this is good. Does it feel like after the Jari trade and lineup changes, they are just giving up on the season? Or it's not waving the white flag yet? No. I don't think they're giving up on the season. They made a trade they felt like they had to make. Not giving up on the season whatsoever. Stuart Skinner has been good in his Penguins performances. Are you going to fault him for letting in a breakaway goal in which Steven Lorentz gets 3 or 4 whacks? Are you going to fault him for allowing a breakaway goal to William Nylander or allowing it was probably close to a 45-degree redirection, Parker Wotherspoon's own goal last night? It was going wide to Skinner's left. He's tracking the puck, and now it goes into the right post. That was a brutal change of direction on Wotherspoon's fan. That's why I called it an own goal, because it was not going in until Wotherspoon sort of fanned on the slap away. No, I don't think at all that someone told me. Here goes Dan on another rant. I think I'm getting a little bit cranky at this point in the season. I think I'm getting way too cranky because everything's starting to irritate me. Someone on X last night said, hey, I heard a rumor that the Penguins were pouting after they traded Jari. I'm like, where did you hear this rumor? Someone said, oh, see, it's on this message board. I'm like, It was the same. There was another report last week. It wasn't a report last week by someone who's not a reporter said something that I kind of then had to untangle because I for whatever reason it seems fans are more apt to believe people who aren't the reporters. Like if I say something, fans are like, let me evaluate that. But if a message board says something that you like, it gets much more easily believed. I suppose it's the human condition. But yeah, there was something on a message board that said the players were pouting. It wasn't from any reporter. And I would beg of all of you, the Penguins beat right now is pretty cool. It's been cool all season. It was cool last season. I mean, not everyone has to love each other, but you've got some combination of Josh Yohe, Jason Mackey, me. DK is doing some shuffling, mostly Taylor, I think, for the second half of the season. And all those sorts of things. Nobody is holding anything back. Of that, I assure you. If they're getting it, they want to beat me to it. And if I get it, I want to beat them to it. And then we backslap and say, nice job, nice get, way to win that one, and go on to the next little battle. But yeah, there's none of us sitting there going, boy, the team's really pouting without Jari. But yeah, I can't write that because they'd be unhappy. Not the way it goes. Let's see here. Jacob says we tend to throw it around the boards when we really don't need to. Um, I don't quite know how to answer that. I don't see any. I don't see any needless redirection, change of directions. In fact, talking to Rutger McGroarty last night, he said that was one of the things they did well was the rim around, around the yellow, change the direction, scramble the defense with it. So no, of the Penguins' problems, the rim arounds are not one. Chicken says, "Can Daniel Latch get a look?" I'd probably say no. Um, he's good organizational depth. He's a solid professional, knows how to play hockey. I don't think that Latch has the tools for the NHL. I don't think he's quick enough. Good player though. I mean, the kind of player that helps Wilkes-Barre win games and certainly has helped Wheeling win games. I just seeing him in preseason didn't paint him as an NHL player. Of course, things change too. I haven't scouted him this season since training camp. Maybe he's figured a few things out. If he hasn't, I guess I'm giving you a couple month old information. So take it with a grain of salt. If you're a big Daniel Latch fan, stay a Latch fan. And when I get up to Wilkes-Barre, I will let you know what I see. See here, Colt says, does a knee-jerk Rust or Raquel trade feel imminent? Nope, not even a little bit. Do they finally sell big at the deadline? Says Brandon Rickner. No. Boy, I'm still waiting for that big Penguins fire sale that was reported last February, aren't you? Let's see here. Kevin Hayes will not be the first guy out or second per your comments. I know he hasn't been great, but who has? Give him more time if you are the coach, says Will Rockstar. Well, I'm not saying, listen, I'm saying he's actually played pretty well. It does become a numbers game, though, when Malkin and Lizotte come back. Because then your four centers are Crosby, Malkin, Kindle, Lizotte. You're not going to put Kevin Hayes in the top six. You're not going to take Rutger McGroarty off of Ben Kindle's line. So that's why, you're not going to put Kevin Hayes above Tommy Novak, I don't think. And you're not going to disrupt that chemistry with the fourth line. It really does just become an unfortunate numbers game at that point. Brandon also says this team needs a blue chip prospect. Kindle is great, but I think his ceiling is second line center. Well, yes, every team wants. Yeah, someone, what was I think on the podcast I talked about, someone said, well, they need their next generational player. It was like, geez, I hate to tell you, you don't get a second one. Okay, well, the Penguins got Crosby after Mario. Okay. You're not getting, probably not getting a third one. The odds of that are less than 10% of getting like Gavin McKenna. What's the kid, DuPont in 27? I suppose it is possible that they get the next generational talent. But the odds are greater that they don't. So how do you build, do you build the team with sort of that empty placeholder for where the franchise player goes? I feel like Columbus did that for a long time, and they never got that franchise player. I feel like Detroit did that and never got the franchise player. Ottawa, where those teams really tried to build through the draft and rebuild the organization in all of the right ways, and they never got that number one center. Although Stützle is, he's really good, and Pinto is good backup. But it took a while. Stützle was, rookie, second, third year guy, not putting up great points and not always playing great hockey. Like he wasn't that blue chip like you're talking about, that franchise cornerstone. Hayes, discover his shootout genius. I told you. I told you. All right. Any update on Tanner Howe? Do you have honey mustard? Lemieux over Gretzky for me. Yeah, for me too. What Mario could do in a hockey game, no one has ever done. The closest is Connor McDavid because he can do such things at speed. But just being so much bigger, faster, stronger, smarter than everybody else. I mean, it was crazy. Barnes says, Merry Christmas, Dan from Guatemala City. Cheers to Guatemala City. Boy, I guess we've got readers, listeners everywhere. Can anything be done with the decor other than they have to play better? Different pairing combinations, thoughts? Well, Muse changed up the combinations, but when Erik Karlsson does those Erik Karlsson things, it doesn't matter who's playing with him. And, I think Letang has improved over the last couple or a few weeks. I like Jack St. Ivany and Ryan Shea quite a bit as your third pairing. So, I suppose it is what it is, and you are what you are. I don't think new pairings would fix that. Will says, yes, Dan, you can fix the self-inflicted, but I'm not sure what Muse or the guys are waiting around on. How do you fix these self-inflicted mistakes in a game of mistakes? With mistake-prone players, like you're just going to have them. I mean, Icon says, and another thing, why can you only have some super special tier with just 4 of the greats? Why not 10 or whatever arbitrary number fits all of the ones above and beyond? I suppose someday, like the NFL used to sort of have that with quarterbacks. You had your 3, 4 guys and then 5. And then over the last 20 years, the quarterback league sort of just obliterated the all-time great conversation, with Brady and Mahomes and who and what. And all the older guys sort of got shuffled out of the conversation, like Joe Montana and Dan Marino, Roger Staubach, and so forth. I don't know. Humans like order. And even though it's arbitrary, the 4, those 4, Lemieux, Gretzky, Howe, and Orr, were clearly aliens from another planet playing hockey. They were so much better than the greats that they separated themselves. And can you have the 5? Sure. Maybe the lexicon will grow to the top 5 players of all time. Because Sidney Crosby is reaching alien status. He's getting pretty close. Gable Fisk says Jagr was better than Gordie Howe. He just wasn't from small town Saskatchewan. I don't know. If Jagr had kept up his pace that he had with the Penguins and done so with the Washington Capitals, let's just say if Jagr had led Washington to a Stanley Cup in his tenure there, he would be in the 5 unquestionably. But he really, he had injury trouble and production trouble and all of that. And people, like, it became a thing with Jagr where people sort of looked down on him. The personal pouting or struggles and all of that. Good point from Will. I think it's kind of interesting how no goalie has ever been a real consideration in the top 4 or 5 conversation. It's just such a different position, right? You don't know. The goalies who are great are kind of lumped together in their own conversation. the Patrick Waugh, Martin Brodeur, Dominic Hasek. I guess I don't hear Ken Dryden mentioned in that conversation, because that was really a time before goalies were dominant. You know, Patrick Waugh sort of helped change the game to become a dominant beast, and Marty Brodeur with all of the wins was dominant, and Dominic Hasek was just Hasek made saves that nobody else made before. I don't know. Is there a fourth that we should add into that conversation of the three best all time? I mean, as great as Fleury was, I don't think he gets put in that conversation, and I don't think he was quite to Patrick Waugh's level. I thought Andre Vasilevsky would get there. He needs another cup or two. Not Ilya Sorokin, but yeah, maybe the Rangers. Igor Shesterkin gets into that four conversation. Maybe he gets there. But again, he has to win something too. All right. Let me go down here. Drizzy, because I'm going to wrap it up here. I appreciate everyone hanging out on the holiday. Did Buffalo make a deal with the devil, or does this just prove how much parity there is in the league? The margins are quite small in the new NHL. No. Here's what happened with Buffalo. Everything was so downtrodden and depressing and morose and hopeless that when they stepped in and fired Kevyn Adams, who has really had a terrible tenure. Early in his tenure, he went for it at the wrong time. None of the moves worked out, which set the franchise back 5 to 10 years. Tage Thompson does, in fact, sort of resurrect and get the franchise close to respectability, but there's still just an ugly, cloudy weather system, both around Buffalo and in that arena. So when Kevyn Adams goes, and you got a guy like Jarmo Kekalainen who says, all right, now we're going to do things my way. I've got a plan. Here's the plan. Here's what we're doing. Everybody just bought in. Everybody stood a little taller. Everybody felt a little better, like there was hope again. And that is spilling over to the on-ice play. Because now you think, okay, we're going to get some help. We got a guy who knows what he's doing. We will have the best version of ourselves. And also, with a new guy who's going to make changes, you don't want to be one of those changes. You don't want to be one of the guys tossed out in the cold while Kekalainen makes trades and changes. So everybody also has a little bit of extra motivation with a little bit of fear. That's what happened with Buffalo. It doesn't always work that way. In fact, with a GM, it doesn't have that direct correlation. But with Buffalo, absolutely, it had that correlation because Kevyn Adams was so synonymous with the slog that the franchise has been going through. All right, so that is it. Listen, I appreciate you. Do me a favor, like the broadcast, comment, whatever. The more you do that, the more YouTube pays me, and I like being paid. I must admit, I like being paid. So everybody have a great holiday. For my Jewish friends, have a happy Hanukkah. And for the Christian folk, Merry Christmas. And I'm off to get some shoes and walk around town. And then I might even treat myself to a crazy dinner tonight that comes from a street vendor. I've got a little place, makes the best Italian beef in Pittsburgh. I'm looking forward to it. I think that's what we're going to do before the holiday tomorrow. So have fun.